Good evening. Charities have been in the news recently for all sorts of scandals, but they are dropping money left, right and centre throughout the pandemic. One charity, Cancer Research, has lost already in the UK £44 million. Is it because we're concentrating on the pandemic and forgetting that there are other things that can attack us? Or is it the scandal? Or is it question mark? Well, let's go to the team. And first of all, since it is a financial matter at the moment, let's go to Paul first.
Okay. The dilemma is that a charity is often viewed as a business. I've heard many people say a charity is a business, should be run as a business, and should get obviously some special dispensation. Other people say it's clearly special dispensation, should get funds. So there's a thinking there. I worked for the Prince's Trust, which is Prince Charles's charity, for 5 years as a volunteer whilst a banker. And the thing was there that I felt that, if I'm going to be crucial about costs could have been cut in those days, there's no doubt. Many volunteers joined and working very hard. So the thing is, the balance is the charity must act like a business. It must clearly show it's doing right work. Otherwise, there's chief executives get paid too much and normal criticisms. So I think the balance is hard. I would say that in this situation, there's no reason why the UK government cannot help for a limited time. And there's no doubt that eventually, when the economic recovery comes, and there are many companies like Netflix, like Amazon, we've all talked about it, that are doing very well, they surely should raise their charity stakes. In other words, I think everyone suffers in a breakdown like this, but it can be mitigated. I think charities should have some help, but if you help just them, then everyone else is moaning. Everyone suffers in this.
Suzanne, you're probably the biggest humanitarian that we have on this panel. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I do think that what people are doing right now as a result of the pandemic is asking where they should be donating their money, particularly in the United States. I know that I work with a lot of nonprofit groups, particularly cultural groups, museums, and theater groups, and they really are noticing a huge drop in donations. And the theory is that people are deciding to spend their money elsewhere, but they're still donating. And so the places that are receiving funding really are more health-based organizations, at least in the United States. And which I think obviously that's wonderful, but it really is going to severely hurt the cultural industry in New York in particular. And so my hope is that we start realizing how important all of these things are and it gets redistributed.
Stephen, you're very concerned about the cultural side of what's happening at the moment. The theatre's closing, perhaps never reopening, the way that the government is treating the theatre or the cultural sector. What's your reaction to what Suzanne says?
Suzanne makes a good point. Paul also saying that some years ago, a charity for which he worked, costs could be cut. And I'm concerned on the cultural aspect that one of the causes I do support, the Royal Opera House, one could say its pitcher has been too often to the well. Not only did it have millions in advance bookings, instead of offering refunds for cancelled performances, it expected those erstwhile patrons to donate their ticket money as a gift. Well, I already give to Covent Garden, I'm not giving them any more. And I did tell them that I thought they had a misplaced sense of entitlement. The refund came the next day. On other matters, one saw in the high street charity shops, the British Heart Foundation, Cancer Research, Oxfam, and others, was saying, please do not leave your gifts and donations outside, clothes and records and books, because there's no one to take them in. They are now taking them in, so it shouldn't be long before they recoup some money. But who is getting paid by these charities? There was a big row about one of the big ones, who I mentioned, but quite which one I cannot recall, that more of its money was going on administration than it was actually passing to the beneficiaries. And this is something that really needs closer examination. I am not sure. I don't want really to upset more than I manage to in a normal day. But I think our money, my money for Covent Garden and the ballet school, is committed every month. I'm not suddenly going to find that I must go without a luxurious meal replacement drink in order to give more money to them. We have to consider it. There is no sense of entitlement. That has to be destroyed, and I think that sense is being abused. That's all I want to say about this.
I shall think about what you said over my oysters and champagne. Melissa.
Well, you could make a cut.
Melissa, Stephen has just talked about the cultural side of things, but I suppose that everybody is starting to think about the health side of things, is the cancer research, heart foundations, and so on and so forth. In the United States, what is the sentiment at the moment amongst the populace towards any charity?
Well, I think people are still struggling. The stimulus plan has lapsed, and Congress is now working toward a new one. So people are in survival mode. They're not thinking about charities at this point. Certainly the, perhaps the lower or the middle classes, they're not thinking about that. They're just trying to get through day by day. The wealthier folks are continuing to support these charities. But for right now, I just think you're going to see just less of a flow into them. Regarding the arts, I think people want to support the arts, but they want to see the performance. And because, our opera, New York Symphony Orchestra, and organizations like that are not going to have a full season, people are probably a little bit reluctant. They're going to be more likely to give to maybe perhaps the Humane Society or some of those health organizations like you mentioned.
Suzanne, much is made here in Britain at the moment of privatization of our precious National Health Service, that this government is willing to make a deal with your President Donald Trump and privatize parts of it. Now, how in your country where you don't have an NHS as such, what impact do charities have on things like the health service?
Well, it depends. I mean, there's definitely a few hospitals that are completely based on donations, like for instance, St. Jude's Hospital, which is a cancer hospital for children, that is completely run solely on donation. The Shriners Hospital is another hospital that is completely run on donations. When it comes to just basic care, some of that is funded by the government, some of it is funded by private industries, individuals. I think that when it comes to a privatization or even, I guess, even a governmental health solution for the United States, I just don't know if that necessarily will work here. I think that there are aspects of it that we can certainly use, like for instance, our Medicare system and our Medicaid system are government run. But there's elements of it that are privatized. And so I think that what's happening right now is, as Melissa explained, people are retracting from donations. They're being more thoughtful about it. They're trying to figure out where that money should be going. And it's obvious now that the health industry needs the money. But when it comes to a national health kind of system, I don't think it's going to happen in the United States.
Paul, everybody, I think so far has suggested that the NHS and privatization may all be about the cost and the money. You are our finance man. What's your reaction to what Suzanne had to say?
Well, since the NHS, I believe, employs about 1.5 million people, is clearly can't be tinkered with to any disadvantage. It's great to have the NHS, and in a way it's a form of charity, because it's clearly anything they want they can get. because we put health at a premium. I said, so I don't know the states as well as Melissa do, but I know that various states differ in their treatment of health and privatised hospitals. I'm not sure we want to go down that route. We're proud of the NHS, but at the moment, my view is this has been a disaster. From any disaster, I've learned that most people are affected. There's no reason why costs, etc., are affected NHS everybody. What I'd like to see, perhaps, is those who have benefited from economic this recovery and those who have come out of it fairly okay. I'm not saying the government forced them to actually do something, but perhaps, and it'd be good faith, the companies like that could actually replace the money that's been lost. But I agree with Melissa that clearly I give my £10 a month to Prince's Trust and £10. I'm okay with that, but as you say, poorer people, that's one of the first things to go.
Stephen, your reaction?
Well, let's establish that the NHS is not a charity. I have paid in for it ever since I started work at the age of 16. I no longer pay in for it because I'm laughingly described as retired. But I paid in for 50 years to the National Health Service. Where people are going wrong is thinking that their current contributions are going into a little box marked with their name on. Oh, no, no. It's been woefully administered by successive governments. And the NHS and divers other things are relying on the current contributions to keep going. There is no little box with Paul's name or mine or even yours on it. It's being spent as they take it out of your wage packet. And this is going to present a problem for the future when it comes to an increasingly elderly population and fewer people of working age to support them. Then someone may well have to think again. But I don't like it being called a charity. Look at the way it squanders money. All those various PEP contracts done with friends of friends in government, and they've wasted money. The stuff has not been delivered. 300,000, or is it, 300,000 or 3 million masks can't be used, paid for, because the manufacturer knew someone in government. The matter of procurement must be examined if we are not to waste money in pseudo charities. And I wouldn't say the NHS is a waste of money, but trying to get money for it as if it were a charity is completely wrong. The government runs it. The government must own up to its responsibilities. In this country, alas, I know so little about the way America is run, even less than some Americans, perhaps.
Well, I'm sure that's not true of Suzanne. Suzanne.
No, I was not looking at the two Americans on the screen and thinking of them. But it's like an approach to everything official. Whoa, as long as the council sweep the streets, I don't mind. The fact is, it could be any of 4 authorities in Lewis. Let's cut the concealment. Let's be less obscure. And let's see charities actually declare how much of the money that is given is used in the administration. Then people may think again.
But Suzanne, in the United States, I mean, what Stephen says is quite right. And in fact, a lot of the equipment, specialist equipment, is often bought by the money out of people's pockets when they put the money into a tin. And so our NHS isn't paying for that part of it. How much of the medical system, if you want to call it that, the health system, is supported by charities, if any, in your country?
Yeah, I mean, I think the parallel in the United States from what Stephen just explained is really our Social Security system and our Medicare system, where we contribute in our payroll checks every pay period to a national system, which is basically a legalized Ponzi scheme, honestly, which is basically what was just described, taking money, hoping the money continues to come and using that money. But there, in reference to Social Security and Medicare, there is no donation-based system for funding that. What the system for funding is basically private donations to different kinds of foundations that support medical care. That's how we're structured. So,
Melissa, would you go along with what Suzanne has just said?
Yes, that basically sums it up. We don't have anything like an NHS where everyone is covered. Only a certain part of the population is covered. You know, many years ago under the Obama administration, there was an attempt to cover the millions of Americans without insurance, but it all went through private insurance companies. And of course, the private insurance companies have to pay their CEOs, have to pay their senior executive vice presidents, and they have to pay the shareholders their dividends. So it basically takes money out of care. So that's what happens when you privatize a healthcare system, instead of looking at it as something that should just cover everyone and it is a basic need. So it's just right here in this country, it's a patchwork system. And they're even trying to get the seniors on Medicare off of Medicare and into private insurance called Medicare Advantage, with the promise of home health aides, rides to the hospital at the expense of cancer treatment, you know, heart disease treatment. Because, gee, I get my free gym, but you're going to go and get inferior care at a county hospital, because you will not be able to do, you know, the top of the line hospitals. So it's almost hoodwinking the seniors to just take them off of Medicare and throw them into the private insurance sector.
Yeah. Keith, I'd
Paul?
like to say...
Oh, sorry.
Right,
Yes, Stephen?
Well, I just would like to say that various local hospitals have what are called leagues of friends, which raise money specifically for things those hospital needs. And we have the Victoria Hospital in Lewis, which has a league of friends, which raise all sorts of money independently of the National Health Service. But the demands are becoming greater than leagues of friends can support, I think.
Another financial issue, Paul. What's your response?
Yeah, can I just, I was cut short by time really, but I agree with Stephen. The NHS should actually be overhauled totally. Let me give you an example of Brighton, and I think Keith, you will probably know this. A guy called Stuart Middleton was the CEO of Brighton. Now Brighton's a huge place, university, 4 universities in Brighton, and he was on £480,000 a year, yeah? And he kept it going. I know people who know him. He was sacked eventually after about 5 to 6 years of actually doing nothing. And I agree with, I sound like a policeman now. I think there are many people just taking the rise, as we say. Hospitals should be totally thoroughly overhauled, investigated here, and a system should be introduced where, as you say, it's not a charity. You're absolutely right, Stephen. I didn't mean it in that way. It's getting money as if it's a charity, but it can't be a bottomless pit, which for the last 20, 30 years it has been.
All right, let me just ask you, basically what we started the discussion about is, do you think that people are focusing away from the things that charities do, like cancer research, heart research, because of COVID or however we pronounce that, or the mistrust of charities?
Keith, I don't think it's a mistrust of charities, but I think there are so many people furloughed, so many people now being made redundant, that their own lives are more important in their minds than something they might do for charity. There are hundreds of thousands of people struggling to survive, and giving some of their money away does not come first in their mind.
Well, you make an important point, Stephen, and the Bank of England said the other day that its estimate is that there will be a million jobs lost minimum as a result of this crisis. So, Paul, what sort of money does that mean is going to disappear from the economy?
Well, first of all, the current Bank of England, and I was actually offered a job there in quite a senior position years ago. I wouldn't rely on the Bank of England figures totally for a start. What I think, let's get this right, and I'm just thinking of my own background. This is unknown to everybody. All these statistics, I've really had a go at statistics. Oh, Bank of England say million. They haven't really a clue. It's speculation. We've never been down this route before. COVID is affecting us in every way. How can people say, well, in 3 months' time, it's going to be fine? I think, well, yeah, the Bank of England has got to, I mean, clearly the money situation must be regulated. And I still believe that people should be allowed to carry debt forward where the banks, Bank of England and government actually allow people to, that time. Because let's face it, we're out of furlough here. We've got, everyone's saying it's a new start now, but people are still, the cash flow suffers. And you need cash flow for probably the next 6 months if you're an individual. If that's not there, we're going to lose more jobs and more people will be unable to pay their mortgage. So we've got to be very careful.
Suzanne, we've actually come to almost 22 minutes, so we've only got a couple of minutes left. A final word from you.
Okay, I'm going to say, yes, there are probably a lot of reasons why people aren't donating, but they still should. The world is a better place when we're a giving body of people.
You really are one of the nicest people I've ever come across. Melissa?
Yeah, she is very nice. Much nicer than I am. I agree.
What's your final word?
Yes, definitely. Give what you can. Give as much as you can. You know, do the best you can. Balance your budget. Give a little bit. Makes you feel good.
Stephen?
Final word. Good night.
Paul? I've left you till last because as the economist on this one, you undoubtedly have been the sharpest. So a final word from you.
Well, it's very kind of you, but as I say, I'm going to downgrade economists. As I say, if you put 12 economists in a room, they'll all totally differ with their speculation or their guesstimate. It's a flip of a coin. I think when you've got, it's like the Second World War. After the Second World War, I didn't think any people, Germany, Britain, or even America, realised the process, how they do it. They dealt with it. So I think Stephen and I were talking about that, is statistics can blind people to actually what's going on. And for me, Bank of England haven't been that accurate in the last year, especially with that Canadian guy running it. He was actually awful. But somehow we get through. I think the common sense of everybody and the fact that jobs should be protected where possible is the only course of action we've got. But I'm optimistic, but I don't know the way forward. I'm not a clairvoyant.
Well, thank you to the panel for their comments this evening. As for me, I am very happy to be the recipient of the government's charity where they've asked the restaurants to slash the cover charge by 50%. Dom Perignon and champagne for a tenner. A wonderful world. Good night.
Good night.